Hey everyone, this is Marty O'Brien for the band Daughtry, and this is EMGtv, Touching Bass. The most influential bassist of all time, I would say, has to be James Jamerson from every Motown hit song you've ever heard, ever. I think he kind of invented what we know now as like walking bass lines. I mean, sure, yeah, the jazz players all over their uprights, but I don't know, he created this new world of bass playing with the electric bass, and I think so many followed in his path with thousands of amazing bass lines on all those Motown hits. I mean, John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin, and I don't think Woody would exist without those James Jamerson bass lines. That's my answer. My number one bass, I'd say for sessions at home, is a 61P bass. And funny thing, I actually bought it off of Tommy Lee, drummer for Motley Crue, Tommy Lee. At the time, this is early 2000s, I was just starting to do more sessions. I was really trying to get into the session world more and more, and I just decided I really needed a vintage P bass, and he had one in his collection, and I was like, I really want this bass, and I somehow convinced him way back in like 2002, 2003, and I've had that bass ever since, and it's even more special to me now because it wins in every session I do. Anytime I do a session, I'll test out a whole bunch of different basses without even just the blind test. People would just be like, "What is that?" If I plug it in, they're like, "What's that?" I go, "61P bass," and it's on a lot of big sessions I've done. It's on like actually Kelly Clarkson's biggest song, her biggest hit, "Because of You." It's on that song. It's on a Celine Dion song I played on. But even some metal stuff, so it's probably the most used on recordings bass that I have. 61P bass. I wish I had it here. What is the most iconic bass line? I can't pick just one. I can't decide. There's just so many, so we'll just go through the list. Obviously, there's the Another One Bites the Dust. You know that, of course. Queen has two. You've got Under Pressure. Somebody could argue that's the most iconic bass line. In my growing up learning how to play the bass, probably the most iconic was Dazed and Confused, Led Zeppelin. The list goes on. I'm trying to think, what are some other ones? Subdivisions by Rush. What else? I can't think. If I could be the stunt double for any bass player out there, well, actually, the funny thing about this question is I have been the stunt double. For years I was known as the guy that could come fill in if there were injuries, which is kind of funny because Fuzz, the bass player for Disturbed, broke his ankle once, and I filled in with Disturbed on a tour. And then 6 months later, Tony from Static X fell off his motorcycle and fractured his collarbone. And I had to fill in for him on that. So there was kind of this ongoing joke of the stunt double thing. But I would say John Paul Jones. Man, if I could go back in time and just put on some ruffle shirts and get that 60s P bass out and just play some of those Zeppelin shows, Madison Square Garden and back in that era, or even just Zeppelin songs in general. Zeppelin is a bass gig that I could dig my teeth into and have fun with. Absolutely. A bass technique that players should aspire to at least practice or work on. To me, I just love this technique of muting with the right hand. It just gives you this kind of control, and it's like some people will mute with their palm, but I kind of do that thing where you can mute with your fingers as you're playing. Every time I hit a note, I mute it immediately with the other finger. And it just gives you this cool control, and you can kind of just bounce around. It's just a fun technique that I like to use. I think the ultimate bass player drummer combination rhythm section would be to imagine what would it sound like if you took James Jamerson on bass with John Bonham on drums, because obviously John Paul Jones comes from that school of James Jamerson, and I think it'd be cool to take those two different worlds of the 50s and 60s with the 70s and put those two guys together and see what that would have sounded like. To me, that's the ultimate rhythm section right there. But then again, John Paul Jones and John Bonham was the ultimate rhythm section. So the James Jamerson is just a different flip on it. Let's see what happens.